You are now listening to Protecting Your Nest with board-certified family medicine and obesity medicine specialist Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com. Welcome to Protecting Your Nest. This is a special week. That's because this week we celebrate over 10,000 downloads of Protecting Your Nest podcast. I am so grateful and want to thank each and every one of you for your support and trusting that what this podcast offers will help you on your health-related journey. It's like when my patients thank me in clinic, which is an acknowledgement that what we are doing matters. But that's not the only reason I'm excited today. The other reason is because today's guests will be the two young men who have been in my nest since their very first day on the planet. Yes, it's true. Today, I have the pleasure of having a conversation with my most prized possessions, Brandon and Justin Hampton. When they were both just babies, that's when I really started to focus on nutrition seriously. It's actually amazing that it sometimes takes having a new life to care for when we realize what we must really pay attention to as it relates to what we put in their mouth. And as a side effect, what we put in our own mouth. At that time, I didn't know as much about low-carb, high-fat diets, but in retrospect, I find it interesting that our babies actually need fat to be healthy. Why? Because their developing brains need fat, since fat is essentially 60 to 70% of what their brain is made of. I always told them back then that they had really big fat heads, but they never really took me seriously. Today, my two young men are here to share some of their experiences being in the household where carb restriction is the standard, so that maybe you can see that this way of eating is not actually difficult at all, and you can actually imagine doing it yourself. So with that, I welcome both of you to Protecting the Nest. How are you guys doing today?
I am doing great. A little bit tired. It's been a very long day with school.
Yeah, school can kick your butt for sure. Justin, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very fine.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. So let's start with Brandon. And what I want you to do, Brandon, is just kind of introduce yourself to our audience and just tell them a little bit about what you've been up to, whether it's school or anything else you're up to.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brandon Hampton. I am currently a graduate student. I'm getting my MBA at Washington University in St. Louis. So that's what I'm currently doing. It's been a roller coaster, to be honest. A lot of work, a lot of time spent. We're actually taking 21.5 credits, which is technically above the max credit amount, but we're doing that anyway because of the COVID situation. It's been a challenge, but it's definitely an enriching program. I'm definitely glad I can do it now because, the school actually offered a generous scholarship. So that allowed me to actually go through with the program as well. Besides that, in my free time, I love dance. It's my passion. So I try to do that as much as I can.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And thank God for that scholarship. I'm happy about that as a parent as well. So Justin, what you been up to this time of the year?
Yeah, I'm hoping that scholarship transfers over to me because I'm currently a senior at Washington University. I am majoring in African and African American studies and minoring in marketing. So I've just been trying to focus on school, focus on my life. In this pandemic, it's been, as my brother says, a roller coaster. So I'm trying to figure my way through it, but it's been a good experience overall.
Yeah, I know that's got to be kind of weird. The irony for me as your father is that because of the pandemic, that's kind of what led to the podcast. That's why I'm in school getting a master's, because things slowed down just enough to give me more time. So I think you have to turn lemons into lemonade. So appreciate that intro, guys. So let's talk a little bit about this whole low carb lifestyle. So we'll ask this question of both of you guys. So maybe Justin, you can go first. So why the heck did you even bother starting a low carb lifestyle? I know you're in a household, but you guys were in school, not in school. What made you even want to go into it?
So I actually started my keto journey after my sophomore year in college. I was going through a rough patch, I would say. I couldn't really balance schoolwork. I couldn't really balance life in general. I find myself being very tired, having no energy, don't want to go to class, don't want to participate. All of these factors that at first I was attributing to my mental health. So when I got home after taking a break from school, I was just thinking about what could I do to lift myself up, to bring myself up. And one of the main things that I turned to was working out. I would start to work out again, and this would give me excitement. But the thing was, I wouldn't get the same progression that I thought I could. So my father actually introduced me to this keto diet and this keto lifestyle. When he first introduced it to me, I'm sure like many people, it was something that was very hard to swallow. I had to give up bread, which is something that I rely on for a lot of meals, a lot of snacks, a lot of
Right.
things have carbs in it. So it was I wouldn't say it was a hard transition per se. I would say it was more of a weird transition in that I didn't understand fully what I would be missing out on. And you can put that missing out on in quotes because you're not really missing out.
Cool.
But that's essentially the beginning of my keto journey, was an introduction by my father to it.
Cool. Yeah, I'll be honest. I definitely felt like, because I was benefiting, that when you had that struggle, and I appreciate you sharing that, that there's things we can do. I never feel like I want to be handcuffed and I can't do anything about my circumstances. So I really respect the fact that you were willing to try it. So thank you for sharing that. What about you, Brandon? What you think?
Yes. So my journey was a little bit different because I actually found out about this diet from my brother, Justin, while I was studying abroad in Chile. And it was a complete shock to me. I honestly had no idea what I was getting into. And he told me basically, well, first he actually sent me a picture of himself with just six-pack abs. And I was just like, what? And it was honestly a shock to me. I was just like, whoa, like I need to try this out because, in Chile, they eat a lot of bread. So I was over there just chowing down on bread and all these different carbs. And when he told me, oh, you can't eat rice, you can't eat potatoes, you can't eat pasta, I'm like, that's all they eat over here. So I don't know how I'm going to escape. So I remember, trying a few different things. So sometimes when my host family would cook, let's say salmon and rice, for example, I would just eat the salmon and just try to skip out on the rice. But it was definitely a difficult journey for me because I love sides. I love everything about mac and cheese, mashed potatoes, French fries. Like I'm more of a side person than I am a meat person. So, and when I was younger, my favorite food was pasta. So it was definitely a struggle for me in the beginning. I have to say that.
Wow. Actually, Brandon, I didn't even realize you had started this before you came home. I didn't know that Justin's abs was your incentive and that you started before. I actually didn't know that. So I think that's true. And, we live in a town called Oak Park, Illinois, and they have a ton of Italian restaurants. And I mean, just sitting at that table with that warm bread and that, that olive oil and, all of that stuff, just imagine giving it up. I think that all was breaking our hearts. So, but again, we had a reason. I think you had a why. Justin had a why. I had my why. So I'm curious. You kind of partially answered this question, but maybe you'll go first this time, Brandon. So it seems that's a lot to sacrifice. So how hard was it? Was it one of those things where it just took maybe a couple of weeks? Or was it something once you started, it got easier over time?
I'm a person that craves a lot of food and a person that eats a lot of food and a person that it seemed like 30 minutes I'm asking about food.
Right.
So yeah, it was a challenge for me because with the keto diet, it sort of works in a sense where when you first start, a lot of people describe it as sort of, your body is sort of changing and adapting to a new diet. So it can be a lot for you, and depends on the person, but like there's going to be a lot of side effects, uh, being on the toilet, for example. Let's not get into the details, but that's just one example. And a lot of times you can feel that, you become really hungry because your body is trying to adapt to only absorbing fat instead of carbs.
Primary fuel. Yeah,
exactly.
That's interesting. Okay.
So yeah, it definitely was a challenge for me. And I think, like I said, the snacks, like I love my snacks. I have a huge sweet tooth. So giving up a lot of things with sugar was definitely difficult.
No doubt about it. What about you, Justin? What you think?
Well, my journey, I would say that it was more of me following through, in that I had a set plan in my mind. So when I started working out again and having this keto diet, as Brandon said with my abs, I was seeing progress. And this is progress I've never seen before. So that in its own right was justification for me to keep doing keto. But even after that honeymoon effect of me working out in this groove, once that wore off and I was really thinking about, whoa, what could I be eating right now?
Right, yeah.
But my father, he told me that wheat and bread and all these other things that a lot of snacks are made of, carbs, these are man-made foods, and that we didn't have this food in the past. And the fact that the way that the fact that how America is right now in terms of its health, you can see the effects of this. So me rationalizing that and looking at this keto diet, I'm already seeing results. I'm seeing progress. So it was just a matter of
just following through with it.
Yeah, it was a matter of just following through.
Okay, so that sounds good. I'm actually having a moment now when I'm reflecting. I think it was one of those days when Brandon, Brandon's my oldest, by the way, guys. So, and you're 23 and your brother's 21. So last Saturday, you slept a little later, and it was around brunch time. So, and you came to me and said, I'm about to go study and do something for my MBA class, and it's going to take a couple of hours, but it was already 1:00, right? And I knew that meant it's going to be at least 3 p.m. before you have something to eat. And I remember, as you've suggested, you liked to snack when you were younger. In fact, you were like a cow. You grazed. You ate pretty much all the time, right? And the first words that would come out of your mouth was, "What we eating?" That's what you said. And it was just, I thought that's the only thing you could speak is what we eating, So I knew, it was like 3:30 p.m. And I think we probably had bacon, sausage, eggs, and I don't even know if we had anything else, but we probably had that. It was a Saturday and it was 3:30. Even as I watched you, because my brain was thinking about it because I knew we were going to be talking about this anyway. And I was like, my goodness, it's like 3:30. And not only were you not focused on the food, you were focused on what you were looking at on your computer screen. And I don't know if it was schoolwork or a reality show, but I just know you were eating, but it was like so casual, and you would have been starving. So I'm trying to figure out, you don't feel hungry at 3:30 in the afternoon, and for a person who would wake up and ask for food. So of course that's like intermittent fasting, but tell me a little bit about this intermittent fasting thing. And was that something you did intentionally, or you just kind of fell into it because you weren't hungry?
I think for me, the intermittent fasting was something that I originally didn't expect to do and didn't expect to be as consistent with it either. Because usually, like you said, like in the past, when I woke up, whether what time it is, like 9 a.m. or 8 a.m., I would immediately be hungry and immediately try to get something to eat. With the keto diet, I just didn't have that need or desire to really eat a lot. And it was strange. I think, honestly, even when I think about it now, it's just like, it's crazy how that happens and just how your body just adapts to something. And a lot of times, like even through my experience, like I'll get so caught up in my work or whatever I'm doing that I literally forget to eat. And I have to remind myself to eat. And that is just hilarious, like going from someone that eats so much to barely eating. And what you realize is that you actually get so full from eating just what you eat on the keto diet. And I think that's a huge part of it. One of the things that really allowed me to stick with this diet, and one thing that I didn't really initially think was possible, was the clarity of mind. And I think that I really understood that my last year of college. And just, my last year of college, I took a heavy workload. I had the most credits I've ever had in my college career, but I also had the best grades. And I realized that I was able to stay up for hours doing work, just drinking water, essentially. Like I didn't have to even eat anything. And my body felt amazing. Like I felt energized. I felt ready to do work. I felt like I could actually like get through an assignment without falling asleep. I felt alert in class, even if I didn't get the appropriate amount of sleep the day previously. So I think it just goes to show like how powerful this diet is, especially if you do it consistently.
Yeah, I even today, as you know, I had to do our couch conversations with the doctors, which is a Facebook thing that we do with Congressman Danny Davis, who's one of the congressmen for the state of Illinois. And, that was at 7 p.m. and yet I hadn't eaten. So I came home and made a quick little tuna dish and planning to eat dinner as well when we finish. But I really wasn't hungry. And it's weird to go the entire day and not eat. But the good news is that I don't feel guilty about it anymore. I used to feel guilty because I thought I had to have 3 meals a day. So I think we're having a similar experience, to be honest. So, and Justin, I was thinking about you and, when you guys were at Providence St. Mel's, it was a struggle, to get you guys to be alert and study. In fact, when we started there, I had to really work hard because the school was so demanding, and it was just so demanding. I think we both can reflect back on that. But the outcomes were good because you both went to WashU in St. Louis, a fairly highly ranked school, and that's been a great, reward for that sacrifice. But I'm curious, like when it comes to you, Justin, like I remember when we always joke because you said I like studying in bed, yet we would find you sleeping in bed most of the time.
Right.
So it sounds like you had a similar experience in terms of your mental clarity and stuff. So tell us a little bit about how you were able to change what happened in terms of your clarity as well.
Yeah, my high school experience with eating a regular diet is what my father just described as me going in my room, sitting in my bed, looking to see what I have to do for work, and then slowly dozing off to sleep. But I think there was definitely a transition in which when I started the keto diet, there was this immediate effect in which I felt the energy, and I didn't feel this drowsiness that I would always feel after every meal. One of my favorite places to go to eat is this place called Johnny's Beef, where they serve dipped beefs with peppers, hot peppers, sweet peppers, whatever you like, iced tea, all that. After that meal, I would be knocked out cold. Knocked out cold. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, for people who are not from the area we live in, which is, this is in Elmwood Park, Illinois, which is a suburb just west of Oak Park, Illinois, which is just west of Chicago. It's the first western suburb. And I tell you, they grill with charcoal. So the Italian sausage it has that smoked flavor, and it's amazing. But what we do now is that we go to a place called Bueno Beef, and what they sell are beef bowls. And those beef bowls, you can eliminate the bread. And we do miss the French fries, and we do miss the dip bread, with that juice on it. Trust me, we do. But the beef bowl with a side salad with no croutons is a nice low-carb alternative. So no matter what, so we can still enjoy our beef. And it's not quite the same, but I'm going to tell you, it's actually pretty doggone good. So I know that you guys both are still in school and you're doing a keto diet in an environment where everybody's not doing a keto diet. So maybe you can start, Brandon. I'm curious, socially, how has this impacted you? Like, do you have friends that do keto? Do they think you guys are weird for doing keto? What kind of impact has it had on your life socially, if at any at all, if at any?
So yeah, that's an interesting question because one, a lot of people just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
To be honest. And I just remember having conversations with my friends telling them, it's basically a low carb, high fat diet. And, I just have to eat certain things. I can't eat these things. And like, oh, okay. But can you have fruits? I'm like, well, not a lot of the fruits.
Right.
Like only strawberries or blueberries and all that kind of stuff. It sort of just creates an environment of confusion and people really don't know what's happening with the diet. So that's definitely been an interesting conversation I have with a lot of friends. And then you have some people that just sort of hear you and hear what you have to say, and they'll just sort of just say, okay, let's just go to the pizza joint and just still eat.
Right.
So, yeah, it really just depends on the person. I will say that a lot of people are curious and they want to learn more. Mm-hmm. But I've been in situations where I had to sort of argue my case against a friend who, I have friends that are very dedicated gym rats, or they calculate their macros and all these different things to like sort of have this ideal body weight and lose body fat. And me trying to explain to them that, oh, there's actually another solution that you can have, but you don't even have to worry about the math. Because like, who want to calculate macros? Like, what?
Right. So you guys never really did any of that stuff.
No.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever remember seeing you guys do any like carb counting or anything. You just kind of figured out which foods to eat and which not to eat. And that's a valuable lesson, because if you think about people, they complicate this stuff. It's not complicated. Just reduce your carbs, and you do have to figure out which foods are starchy and which aren't. But I think that's a valuable take-home message for anybody that's listening. So I like that.
And then you have like the people that say that, oh, like red meat is bad, bacon is bad, and just like high salt foods are bad. And it's understandable because there's so much information out there.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like with the keto diet, because it's such a low salt intake from what we usually get, because we don't eat that highly processed foods that have a lot of salt and all those different things, it sort of balances out. And I'm no expert, so I'm just...
Yeah, and that makes sense. You may not know the details, but clearly like what happens, like insulin causes salt retention by the kidneys. So it makes your body hold on to salt. But if you're not having a lot of insulin in your body, because you need insulin for starch, then you actually get rid of salt. So you need to add salt back, which is crazy. So now you can have fat and salt. That sounds like a good meal to me, right? So I think so these are things that, again, I want you guys to focus on getting MBAs and degrees and not the details of keto, but it's good to kind of have some knowledge about that as well. What about you, Justin? Were you socially impacted by this at all? Did any of your friends question it, or was it hard to kind of hang out with the crew in a normal way?
I think the main issues per se may arise when like we would go out to eat food at like restaurants, and people would be ordering these big grand breakfasts, big delicious dinners that I couldn't take part in, but I would order something that I could eat. And then in the beginning, there would be a lot of questions as to why, what are you doing? What's the purpose? But I think that a lot of the justification came with the results, because my roommate specifically, Dietrich, he asked me, how did I even get to this point? Like this, my physical condition. Because when I left school, when I was his roommate, I didn't look the same way I came back. So there was this like huge growth in this short amount of time that he was confused about. And I explained that it was the keto diet and all this and that. But socially, it's not that difficult. but I did have experience. I worked at this Oak Park district where I was a counselor. Excuse me. I was working for Oak Park district where I was a counselor, and for lunch, in the beginning, I actually wouldn't eat anything because I would fast. So I would actually fast from when I wake up to 5 p.m. and then go home and eat. And that was it wasn't as bad as you would think, but I definitely didn't have as much energy as I should. So I started eating lunch, which would fit into my fasting schedule. And I would come to work with like boiled eggs, bacon, things that you would think would be either for breakfast or just like a snack on the side, but not like someone's meal for lunch. So I would have kids come to me, what is this? What is this green smoothie you're drinking? What is all this? What's V8 juice? You know, things that are keto that usually people are not consuming like that. But once again, I just told them that it was a keto diet. I'm getting results from it. I'm getting progress. I have this so much energy. That's why I'm interacting with you kids all this time. So, yeah. Most of the scrutiny comes from children.
That's crazy. Awesome.
And that's a good point, Justin. I love how you brought up the restaurants, because that's been a huge challenge for me, going to different places with my friends, because we go to a lot of different international restaurants, and they have very complex, diverse menus. So it's been a challenge. I have to be really creative trying to come up with something to sort of be in the limit of the carbs and all that kind of stuff, because we go to, like, let's say a Japanese restaurant where they have like noodles, rice, and all these different things. You can really only eat the meat and vegetables. But even with that, sometimes they can be coated with different sugary sauces and juices like that. So it's definitely a challenge. And I think it's hilarious to me, like, sometimes when I go to fast food restaurants, because, ever since the pandemic, Wendy's has been a hot spot for us. So we just keep going there. And I'll tell you, every time we pull up to the drive-thru and we ask for like a Dave's Double or a Baconator, and we say bunless or lettuce wrap.
Lettuce wrap.
Like, what? What you mean without a bun? And it is such a shock for people. I remember I actually went to Six Flags a few months ago with my friends before all this situation. And it was like a Johnny's Rocket, I think, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked up to the register to ask, to order my food. And I told them I want a cheeseburger, but without the bun. And they still charged me. It was like $8 for a burger. And I was just like, so y'all ain't going to give me a discount? Like, I'm just eating meat. I'm not eating the buns. I'm like, how much the buns cost?
Yeah, they should. Yeah.
But yeah, I had an interesting conversation with this girl that was there, and she actually told me her father was doing the keto diet. So it was sort of an immediate connection. I think it's like one of those cool ways, like a cool conversation starter. That's right. And people are just very intrigued by it.
Yeah, people are very interested in learning. And it if you had done this 10 years ago, you'd really be like some type of alien. But now a lot of people are doing it. And people are not as afraid, because, as my listeners may know, the American Diabetes Association recommends it at one of the options, low carb and very low carb. The College of Cardiology is saying fat's not a bad thing all of a sudden. So I think there's more acceptance of it. So that's absolutely a good thing. And, as you guys are talking about all of these interesting meals, and I'm curious, I think about the things that you may be missing now that you're doing keto. And I think about your grandmother. So my mom and your grandmother, and when she makes breakfast, what do you guys miss about grandma's breakfast? Now, I will say this before you respond. My kids definitely still will have grandma's breakfast the way it was intended. So we're not that, crazy about this, that we don't enjoy it when she's visiting or when we're visiting her. Having said that, what about her breakfast is that you miss having on a regular basis? Justin, what do you think?
Well, first of all, the whole thing is from the grits to the oof. It's undescribable, the satisfaction I get from the food that she makes.
Yeah. And she cooks it with love, right? So it's not
Oh,
just, it's something about when certain people cook for you. It's like, it's more than just food. It's like love, right? And
mhm.
that's what they do. And it values them. And it also values that relationship. So the grits kind of come to mind. Anything else about when grandma cooks that you miss, or just any breakfast that we have traditionally made as a family? Any parts of those breakfast items that you think back on and say, man, we used to really make this often?
I
Anything that
think
comes
honestly, we used to cook foods that were kind of in line with keto, but some of the things that I would say that I miss is like toaster strudels or toast.
to
Hey,
mind?
toast especially with some jelly in the morning with some sausage. That's what I. That's what I'm saying. Going back to bread, it's that bread thing. But most of the food items we did eat, like sausage, bacon, eggs, that was basically the get up every morning. So it
Yeah,
wasn't like
that
in
part.
terms of breakfast food, it wasn't that bad of a transition too. But that toast, that was something I was missing, and that was
Yeah,
actually something that I tried to incorporate into my keto diet in the beginning because I thought that my body could process those carbs without getting affected. But
right.
as I soon learned, I had to take it a little bit more seriously.
That's fair.
Yeah.
What about one of the things we used to make all the time that you guys actually probably fussed about a little bit were smoothies? Probably because you got that's before we started doing keto, and I made smoothies all the time. But I think you guys got like you got too many smoothies, and I was trying to make healthy smoothies, so it wouldn't always taste as good. Because I think we went from like making smoothies with like juices, and we tried to take the juices away, and that was kind of hard. So I think you probably. What about rice and potatoes? Since that's a big part of what keto is. Do you guys miss the rice and potatoes a lot?
Ooh, let me get on this one because those breakfast potatoes with them sautéed onions and they got that little crispy exterior.
Smothered potatoes.
Oof,
Smothered potatoes.
yes.
May the church say amen.
No, those, yeah, those are my favorite.
Yeah.
That and I have to say, biscuits and gravy. That's something like for breakfast. I used
Yeah,
to
you were a
always
big
love.
biscuit. Yeah, that was your thing. In fact, I think of everybody in the house that you were the ones that was always asking for biscuits and gravy. I don't know what was up with that. So that's a lot. And those are like what we call comfort foods. So that's understandable. So a few things that, do you guys miss crackers, and were you big crackers fans? Do you, or different types of fruit? Do you miss like eating a watermelon or any of that stuff?
Crackers, cookies, wafers, you name it. I miss it. Oh, every type of snack. I'm a really big snack person. It would be
Right.
midnight, and I'm thinking about snacks. Like that's how my obsession with snacks is. And
Yeah.
there's the thing with keto is you're gonna be missing out on a lot of the major snacks because the major snacks are not good for you.
Yeah. Are you, if you had those things, like we don't really carry those things in the house like we did in the past, but if you saw them and they were in the pantry, how hard would that be now? Even though you're getting results, would that be hard for you to do?
Yeah, I think now I can look at it, it's not even a problem.
Okay.
I think it's just about how I changed my mindset at looking at keto as not just like a diet and more of
Hmm.
just a lifestyle.
Okay.
Because I'm finding, as I said, mentioned before, I'm finding success within this. So it just wouldn't seem logical for me to try to switch over to something else at this point, you know? And like just seeing snacks around the house, seeing things that I know aren't keto, it's just like any other thing. I just put it to the side, put it to the
Oh,
back of my
oh,
head.
that's fair. Okay. What about you, Brandon? What you got?
Yeah, I gotta agree. It really is a lifestyle, and it's just so much easier. Like I don't
Yeah,
have to worry about what am I going to eat. I don't have to make that decision. I don't have to make the conscious effort to try to go through all these different things and like what am I craving? Like what is this and that? It's just so simple because your options are limited, and I think it's a blessing in disguise because it's like it really does save you that extra energy. And if especially if you have a busy schedule, it allows you to just not really, because food can be a huge time consuming activity, even just picking a meal. I remember, oh my goodness, when we were younger, just like the process of trying to decide where we were going to eat took longer than the food to be ordered.
I know. It was almost, it was a stressful moment, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And we got to a point as parents where we're like, we're just going to make our own decision. When you make it a little bit more democratic, it gets a little contentious at times. So I agree 100% about that. And, I'm thinking, as we're talking about food in general, when you think about things that we do like, one of the things I tried to do, rather I was, and just so everybody knows, we were doing a vegetarian thing for a while prior to this, which is a complete flip in a lot of ways. But when you think about foods that you really like now that are keto, like one of the things I tried to do to help, because you guys were, still young men, things like cauliflower crusted pizza, mac and cheese. So when you, and you guys now cook this stuff. So are you guys loving those things that you like? I mean, what kind of keto foods do you really like a lot? Anything in particular that really comes to mind?
Yeah, so like during this quarantine, I was able to really focus on cooking and develop that as a skill. And just because I love trying new dishes and exploring different tastes and all that different kind of stuff, I really tried to get recipes from different cultures and try to sort of alter it in a way that can be applied to the keto diet. So for example, I made this chicken tikka masala, which was delicious. And the only thing that you'd really have to replace is the rice, and you just use cauliflower rice. But the thing about rice is, like, what I realized is that it really is just there to add extra substance to the meal. There's really not much flavor. So when you put it together with the chicken and all just the spices that are involved with that, it's honestly a great meal. And there's so many other meals that are like that. And that's why I think the keto diet, like, it's so adaptable. Like, anyone, you can honestly create so many things with the diet. And like, even the sweet tooth stuff, like we've done brownies, low carb brownies. There's this one dessert that I definitely recommend to y'all because it got a brownie on the bottom, like a chocolate 80% cocoa brownie. And on the top is cheesecake. But let me tell y'all this. You put blueberries in the cheesecake, put a layer of whipped cream, and you bake that bad boy for about 40 minutes and you're done. And it tastes delicious. And you can add, artificial sugar and all that kind of stuff. But even with the artificial sugar, it depends, because sometimes that can irritate your stomach. I know, like, for me, I can have too much.
Like the sugar alcohol.
Exactly.
Swerves and things like that.
And to me, I feel like some of them have an aftertaste. So what I usually do is I'll just add just a little. And some of the chocolate that you buy, you don't want to buy 100% cocoa because that's just going to be disgusting. But if you buy like 80 to 90 or like anything above 60, I think is okay. Yeah. So just sort of the natural sugars that are within that are good enough because it's not so many, but it's enough to give you that good taste.
Yeah. Man, you guys make the best desserts. I'm not sure who started the dessert thing, but man, let me just say this. Recently, maybe about a month or so ago, you said, I want to make steaks, right? So you made a steak. And, when you eat a steak from your child, now I know he's a 23-year-old, so he's not a child anymore, but in my brain, he's my son, right? You don't expect to act like you're dining at a fine restaurant. So I bit into this steak. Oh my God. And I was like, what did you do to the steak? I made him send me and you probably found this online somewhere, but it had all these herbs and spices, and it was so delicious and tender. Was that cooked on the stovetop?
It was.
It's cooked on the stovetop. I mean, oh my God. So anyway, when your child, I'm going to call it, starts to feed you like that, it blows your mind. So anybody that's afraid of, knowing how to cook, recipes, you just follow the recipe. And then what you do as you play with it, you can put your foot in it, as they say, down the road. You can get a little bit more personal with it. But if you just follow most of these recipes, they will do you justice. And that way the steak, you're mixing it up, how you make your chicken. You guys come up with some great ideas. So Justin, what's your thoughts on some of your favorite keto-friendly foods?
I would say some of my favorites would definitely fall into the category of desserts.
Yes, sir.
That's something that I look forward to at the end of the day to relax when I'm just eating, regular meals that contain a lot of protein, contain a lot of meat, a lot of meaty things. So
That's
having
right.
that soft cake, it helps a
Right.
lot. But I
And
think my keto journey has awakened this chef in me because in the beginning I definitely was experimenting with a lot of different ingredients that are keto friendly, and I came up with a lot of different recipes like for bread, for cookies, for
yeah,
brownies, all these other types of things like drinks. There's just basically keto recipes for everything. So it really awakened my mind as to what I could make and what I could create. And it's
that's
all stuff that tastes good, and I ain't got to worry about it being bad for me. Like I can eat a whole cake and not worry about the effects after. Like that
that's
should
right.
be justification in itself.
That's right. And we really like you guys have literally been the creators of dessert. So when we have family gatherings, you guys actually will prepare a lot of the desserts. And of course, we have to be careful with the sugar alcohols. Although some are made like the chocolate cake we make. There's like I think it's just egg. I think this is one of the cakes we use is from the Diet Doctor, and it's just eggs, butter, chocolate and vanilla flavor. I mean, there's no like, any issue with sugar or anything, but you can throw some whipped cream and some berries with it and it kind of sets it off. So, but I appreciate you guys because I'm gonna be honest with you. For me, food feels more like fuel, even though I enjoy it. So I'm super busy. I'm not that interested in taking the time to make desserts. But when you guys prepare those desserts, they always taste just as good as the original in my mind. So I really appreciate you guys introducing me to those different things. So it's just not something I made a priority. Now, we've gone from kind of a vegetarian diet, which is insane, to doing this whole low carb. We're kind of doing keto, but I don't know if you guys have heard that some of my previous guests, like Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Christine Bear, she's a doctor in San Diego, and some others, like I just had the Black Carnivore on, who's a lady who lost about 80 pounds or so doing a carnivore. So have you guys heard much about this carnivore diet? I know it's kind of hard to imagine having a dad who was a vegetarian and now he's saying, well, maybe we should try carnivore. So have you guys heard anything about that or have any interest in that? Because it sounds like for you, Brandon, you're not a big meat guy. So maybe that wouldn't fit for you. Justin, I know you are a meat guy. So
Yeah.
do you guys know anything about that diet?
Yeah, so the carnivore diet, I did hear a little bit of information just from you, like how it's just pretty much all meat. And it's really interesting. I didn't even realize that that was a thing. And I can sort of see it, like even with the keto diet, like for breakfast, typically it can be bacon, egg, sausage, pretty much all meat. So it's like the transition, I don't think would be as difficult for someone that's constantly doing keto because you have to constantly just eat a lot of protein anyway to really get full. So, but on the other hand, I do love my vegetables. I just came across this one vegetable called bok choy a few weeks
Oh,
ago.
you killed that.
It's so delicious. Y'all need to eat that bok
Yeah.
choy.
Yeah, you killed it. Yeah. And that's first of all, I'm so lucky to have, uh, my young men able to kind of help with the meal prep. So that's been a lot of fun. But I do think that what I tell my patients is you don't have to do any particular diet. What you have to do is listen to your body. So if I have autoimmune diseases and arthritis or something, and I'm just not getting the results with a low carb diet, then I do a more strict keto. If that's not working, and I consider low carb maybe 50 carbs and keto maybe 20 carbs. And then if that's not working, then maybe I'll do an experiment with carnivore and see if I then feel better. And then what I found in a lot of people we've talked to, interviewed, or just had conversations with, they just feel like they just feel better if they go a little bit more deeper into it. So I think as you guys are thinking about what you're going to do moving forward down the road when you start families, you do listen to your body. I think that's going to be really important, and that'll guide you while learning a little bit of the science. So you'll have a little sense of that as well. Now, one of the things I tell parents, and since I'm talking to my my two sons. And what I hear from my patients as well is this ideal of what gets better. So if you have kids at home, what I always hear is skin gets better, their sleep gets better, their behavior gets better. All of these things get better. And I think the behavior piece they're not really expecting. So when you guys think about your journey, did it affect your skin? Did it affect your sleep? Any thoughts on those aspects of keto?
I think for me, I definitely felt an improvement in my sleep, not just how long I'm sleeping, but just the quality of sleep I'm getting. Because in the beginning, when I was eating regular, well, I was dozing off a lot. I felt like my sleep wasn't really. There was a lot of, first of all, there was a lot of active dreams. So when I would wake up, I wouldn't feel really in line with anything. And then when I would wake up from especially a nap, there's this overwhelming sense of just grogginess, of just tiredness. I wouldn't want to move. It's like I'm sleeping, but I'm awake. It's a very weird feeling. But I definitely felt the improvement when I switched over to keto. I would wake up alert. Like morning would be the time to where I could get work done because I actually feel like I have the energy to do it. Like I have energy to start my day. It's not the end of the day when I wake up.
Yeah, that even helps me as a father. And you guys may have a question or something that you want me to help you with. And I think it's nice to not be so exhausted that you don't want to do it. So it helps me with my relationships with you guys to have the energy to do things. So what about you, Brandon? Anything that you saw that helped you, whether your skin, your sleep, any of that stuff?
Yeah, I would say a lot of those things, like for skin, like just noticing my skin clearing up a little bit and just seeing, like, I just felt and looked more alive. I don't know, as a person, I don't know how to really describe it, but I just felt sort of just even like more confident in myself. Like as I was doing the diet, I guess I don't know if this is just because I'm such a competitive person. I love giving myself challenges, but it really felt good. Like just looking at myself in the mirror and knowing that I'm doing this diet, knowing that it's good for my body, that it's good for my mind. It just felt very empowering in a way. And I think it really serves as like the motivator in the diet, and like sort of touching on how I said, like I'm a dancer at the beginning of the episode. And that really helped me in that field as well. Just being able to keep up with the high energy for a longer period of time, being able to just do different things because of the diet has allowed me to do that.
That sounds like a plan. So, I'm thinking about what's about to happen. We have all these holidays coming up. We have, we got even Halloween. I'm not sure if the parents are going to let their kids go out. I would be a little hesitant, but more than likely they will. We have Thanksgiving, we have Christmas, we have New Year's, all of these wonderful holidays. So I'm curious, you guys' philosophy about the holidays. Are holidays we just splurge and we don't worry about it because we got a whole lot of family that's not doing keto. And even if we're not gathering with them, it's still a holiday. And then we have the other model, which is I'm going to try to keep doing this keto thing. So what's your philosophy about the holidays? Maybe Justin, you should go first.
I think for the holidays, it just depends on how I'm feeling around that time. So if I took a break from keto a little bit before a holiday, then I may not eat like regular food on that holiday. So it just really depends at the time. But in terms of having keto foods for holidays, you're not really missing out on much because a lot of the foods that we have is still very good. It's still very same feelings you get from Thanksgiving food you're gonna get from keto food.
So I'm a big advocate of holiday being a holiday in the sense that I'm gonna cheat. Because holidays for me, and it does depend on the holiday. I think so. Like a holiday like Thanksgiving, certain foods I just really can't pass up because it's just too good.
Right.
And I think for me, the cheat days are very strategic, at least the way I think about it, because I do think that, even with the diet, you still want to, sort of like, as my dad said, you want to do it at your own pace. You want to make sure that you're listening to your own body. So like, even if you do the keto diet consistently, like sometimes, you might feel a little down in the sense that, I have to just eat this. And it can really, if you don't check in with yourself sometimes, it can really get to the point where you just feel that you're sort of limited to the diet. But you can still definitely, have those days where you're cheating, or you have those days where you feel like, I'm just going to eat what I want, because it does a lot for your morale and your mental health and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's important. But with that said, there are so many ways to combine both of them and get the full experience. So like Justin was saying, like a lot of the keto foods, that you have at holidays, or a lot of the foods that you have at holidays can be keto. And I think a perfect example of that is the mac and cheese that our dad started sort of as like a family tradition. And look, y'all, it is, it's delicious. Like it's, honestly, it might not be as good as like, grandma's mac and cheese, but it's pretty good for some cauliflower.
It is. It's one of our favorite dishes now. Yeah, so I don't disagree with that at all. I love mac and cheese cauliflower. And what I love about it also, you can go, so if you make enough of it, you can eat that for like 3 or 4 days, and it's a beautiful side. So I love that. So wow, that's interesting. A couple of really quick, short answers to the following. So, you guys' opinions about using keto, like bars and keto products. Do you guys, do any of that stuff, at all? Because I remember when we first started, seems like we were kind of getting into that a little bit, but I don't know that we see that much anymore. So, Justin, do you feel like you got to buy these keto products at all, or at all? What's your thoughts on that?
I think more specifically, the products come in with me working out and being active like that. So protein supplements, things of that nature, like protein bars. I like to have that kind of as a dessert. But most of the keto products that are out there, personally to me, they don't really taste that good than homemade foods. So I tend to stay away from stuff like that. But there are like specific brands. There's like this chocolate brand that they have.
Mm-hmm.
They got different variations of it, like coconut inside filled, strawberry filled, things like that. And it would taste like real chocolate, and you're like confused, like what's going on? It's keto for sure. So yeah, I think more so people just need to be understanding of what they like in terms of like the products that are out there, because there's a lot of stuff to filter through with everything, really.
I agree with you, yeah. And I think for me, like the first thing that came to my mind was a Halo type ice cream. I don't even know if that's branded as keto necessarily, but like it definitely got low carb, and they use the ethanol or whatever that sweetener is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Like, and I think one of the problems with a lot of keto branded products is that a lot of them they're sort of branded as keto, but like when you look at the actual nutritional labels, there's some hidden information.
That's right.
I think that can be problematic for consumers, because, it's sort of misleading them to think that it's actually healthy, but there's a lot of misinformation.
Especially with, so you have some products they advertise as keto, but then in a way they're processed foods. So you want to get away from processed food. And the other example is this cauliflower pizza crust. And then you look at it, why does it have 28 carbs?
Right.
Well, that's because it's mixed with all this potato flour and all this other stuff. So I think really being a good label reader is really important. When you guys first started, I know Justin for sure was doing this ideal of measuring ketones in the urine. Now, are you guys still doing that? I don't recall us buying those strips anytime recent. Do you guys do it at all? Do you bother?
Yeah, for me, it was definitely thing that I would use in the beginning to just keep track of what I could eat and what I couldn't. Because like I said before, I would try to incorporate bread into my breakfasts, but that was literally the only thing that was holding me back to get into full ketosis. So I think it's definitely a good thing to start with, but that dependency on it, you don't really need it. Because once you get in the groove, you're going to know when you're in ketosis. Like you're going to see the results, you're going to feel the results. So
Yeah, people say that. I hear like if you feel better, you're probably fine. And
Yeah,
unless you're doing it for like medical reasons or something, you have like if you have epilepsy and you got to have, that's
right.
different. Or if you're uncontrolled diabetic, you may want to be a little bit more,
Strict.
close
Yeah.
monitoring. But other
Mhm.
than that, and what about you, Brandon? What's your thoughts on using urine ketones or any other? I know you weren't going to do the blood test, but what about the urine?
Yeah, for me, I remember in the beginning, I was, I did it like every week. I really wanted to make sure I hit the ketosis. And I think for me, because it was like I was just starting off, so I really wanted to make sure I was going to be as strict as possible in order to just get into the state. And like once I
Hmm.
achieved it, like once I got the results back that it was like, oh, I'm positive in ketosis, then I was like, okay, I can chill out.
Hmm.
But yeah, you definitely don't have to be as crazy as I was with it. But I think you just sort of have to go at your own pace. A lot of times, even the results can be misleading. Sometimes they're false, so that can be a problem. I remember actually the last time I did it was probably like a few weeks ago, and it
Hmm.
came back as if it was negative or
Right,
something. I've been
right,
doing this, for
right,
like a long time, so clearly
right.
it don't work that well.
Yeah. Well, it's I don't know if I ever explained this to you guys. I may have a while ago, but once your body is keto adaptive, like in the beginning, your body's going to excrete a lot of ketones because you are not able to use that fuel very efficiently. And once you become keto adaptive, you don't spill as much ketones because you are using the ketones for fuel. Isn't that weird? So it's a paradox. So now, if you check your blood ketones, you'll probably still, it's probably a more accurate way to do it. But in general, that's why the urinary ketone thing is probably best, like Justin, in the beginning, and then after that, you should probably just not think about it. Just because again, we want to enjoy life. We don't want to be spending our whole lives measuring things and
Right.
trying to be perfect about this. So that's pretty cool. One last question about, I don't know that I've ever taught you guys to add fat because it's low carb, high fat. Do you guys think about adding fat? Like some people use those bullet coffees and things like that where you add MCT oil. Do you guys had you guys gotten into any of the adding fat kind of concept at all?
I have to say the only times I really add extra fat is like so when I'm cooking steaks, for example, I add a lot of butter, and I
Hmm.
mean, my first reason was because it tastes good with a lot of butter, but also the butter is fat, so you sort of get a double win.
Hmm.
And also, when we make smoothies, we can use the coconut milk if it's unsweetened, but also like there's this brand called Thai coconut milk that has a lot of fat in it, and it's literally like when you buy the can, it's so fatty that the milk is like a solid pretty much.
Mm.
So it just adds so much flavor to it.
Okay. What about you, Justin? Adding fat?
Yeah. For me specifically, I don't think I ever actually have focused on adding fat, but I did try to pursue doing like bulletproof coffees, things of that nature. But the concept of adding fat is more just like going crazy with butter, with eggs, things like
Right.
that, basically. Yeah.
Cool. That makes sense. Yeah, I don't. I think when I first started, I was trying to do the bullet coffee and stuff. Now I just do black coffee, and I just don't think it's necessary. I think if you add too much fat, then you're not going to burn body fat. Now we're not, one thing we don't struggle with our weight, but we're just trying to optimize our body, and that's a good message for people listening. You don't have to be overweight to do keto or carnivore or low carb. If you just want to be healthy, it's actually a good way to go. So it's a good way to protect your nest, which is my, kind of last question, which is, when you think about the nest and the rope. So let's walk through that. The nest is all about nutrition. That includes fasting, exercise, less stress, more sleep, how we think, and avoiding trauma. So that's all nest. And then the rope is for relationships and making sure they're healthy. O for organisms, like avoiding COVID, you know. P for pollution, avoiding pollution. And that includes what you put in your body, those additives, obviously pollution in the air. E for emotions, being emotionally healthy. And the other E in the rope is for life experiences and having life experiences that serve you. So when you think about your nest and rope, what part of that is something you guys feel like you want to focus on over the next year or so as you work towards your personal goals?
For me specifically, I'm a very big advocate in just mental health and mental clarity and just building up this fortitude of just power in your mind that no one, like that's the thing no one can take away from you. But I think the keto diet has really enabled me to just find out who I am as a person and the strengths and weaknesses I have. Because in the beginning of the diet, I was questioning my motives as to why I was eating good. Like, what's the purpose? Yeah, of course I want to get better. I want to get bigger, swoller, all these things. But besides that, besides the physical, my mental, how is this helping me? Is this going to help me get to my goals? Yes. It's helping me become more physically able. It's helping me become more mentally able. So all of these things were aligning and are still aligning to my goals. So I'm just going to keep trying to push forward towards this mental fortitude that I really, really want to strive for.
Yes, that's a beautiful thing. So that's awesome. We've never talked about that, but great discovery during this podcast. So thank you for sharing that, son. And what about you, Brandon? What's on your mind?
Yeah, I got to piggyback off of that. The mental strength and the mental health is extremely important, I think. And, when you're trying to manage stress, relationships, trauma, like just different things in your life, which in the current times can be possibly high, I think it's really important that we check in with ourselves and that we really hone in on our emotions and go through the emotions. I think that's really important, and find ways to really process those emotions and find things in our lives that make us happy, that we're passionate about, that we love to do, surround each other with people who we actually want to be around and all that kind of stuff. And with the diet, that has helped in so many ways. And I think just going back to the conversation of hunger and the emotion of hunger and how strong of an emotion that can be in itself and how powerful and controlling it can be. And, like for me, oh my goodness, like every time I'm hungry, it's just I'm almost like a different person. Like I feel like I'm Betty White from the Snickers commercial about to go crazy. So
wow.
with this diet, it has helped me to really control that because, with that feeling of hunger, like you don't feel focused. You just feel irritable. Like any little thing can get in the way. So I think keto really complements the mental health. And obviously there's so much more you have to do outside of that, but it definitely helps.
It's interesting hearing that from you guys when, again, many of my previous guests have really talked about mental health, and they never really did the diet for that reason, but that's probably the biggest win that they got from doing it. So thank you for sharing those thoughts, which are pretty amazing. Now, I was really excited about this podcast because I knew I would discover some things about you guys. And, you have to do a podcast to have a good conversation with you, which is insane, but I'm good with that. So, both of you guys are working on some projects that you want to, work towards. Obviously, Justin, you're in college still. Brandon, you're in your master's program, your MBA program. So, Justin, what are you working on? What type of stuff can people expect to find from you? Why don't you share any of that you have to share?
Yeah, besides the daily grind and hassle of school, I'm going to be starting a YouTube gaming channel. So be sure to look out for that. It should be coming in the next few months. I'm teaching myself how to edit, teaching myself how to use basically many Adobe programs that will just make better content for people and have a more professional feel. So look out for that YouTube channel coming up. That's
exciting. Yeah. I would have in the past been concerned about that until I looked up how well those guys were doing. So right. you have my vote and support. Trust me. So what about you, Brandon? What projects are you working on?
So 2 months ago, I released a podcast, and it's something that I had no idea was in my life that was going to occur to me. I didn't even expect to do anything like this, but it's called Ritmos Negros, Ritmos space Negros, and that's Spanish for Black Rhythms. And it's a monthly podcast. I do episodes in English and Spanish, and basically it discusses African origins and Latin American and Caribbean music and dance. It's something that I feel very passionate about. And as an African American, finding sort of this connection to African culture through Latin dance and an entirely different culture, it was definitely something that was interesting and something that allowed me to personally connect to the genre of music. So I do really welcome you all to listen to the first 2 episodes I released. The intro episode, I just talk about myself, why I do it, and sort of a little bit of the perceptions of race when it comes to the United States versus Latin America. And in the second episode, we start with our first musical style of rumba, which is a sort of a distant relative of salsa. And that's also another style that you guys may or may not know. But just to sort of simplify it, rumba is a style of music that essentially was birthed from religious traditions of Yoruban slaves in Cuba. And I sort of frame it as meeting the salsa gods, because essentially what the Yorubans were doing in Cuba were summoning these gods called orishas. And it's a very beautiful display. And you can even check out videos of orishas or Yoruban gods. It's really, really interesting to see just the dance, the music, the drumming and all that different stuff, and how that contributes to the present day Latin genre.
That's awesome. I really very excited for both of you guys, and very excited about, creating products in 2 languages. I think the education has definitely paid off. So for those who are Spanish, prefer Spanish, should I say, it's totally okay to enjoy both. So thank you guys both for being here and just sharing a new experience as I kind of celebrate, 10,000 downloads. And I think in fact, it was so funny. We were noticing your first month, you were pretty much pacing right there with your dad. So that was awesome. So you're doing a great job with that. So thanks to both you guys for just introducing yourself to my audience. And I'm really excited about this opportunity we just had. So, and I also want to, thank the audience for spending some time with us. And when you learn a little bit about how the Hampton household is living a low carb lifestyle, you'll have confidence that maybe that's not a bad way for your family to go. And it's really not that big of a struggle. And the benefits outweigh any of the challenges you may face as you adapt to this lifestyle. We also plan to do a Facebook, YouTube Live where we share some images of the foods we normally consume at home to make sure anyone not familiar with this carb restrictive lifestyle have an understanding that this may be the tastiest way to eat, actually. And we'll also share the link to that YouTube Live, Facebook Live. We'll share that link in the show notes. We all want to protect our personal nest, but those who are part of our larger family nest are just as important. That's why I got my boys here with me today. If you have someone you love who may need just a little more motivation and direction, consider sharing the good news that a life of chronic illness is not their destiny. Many of my previous guests, like myself, have dedicated our lives to helping you achieve your health-related goals, and that includes your family as well. So as you listen to what we have to share, make sure you share the message and those other guest messages of healing so that you can use that as a tool to help you continue your journey to your ideal state. So we appreciate you. We love you guys for listening to us. We will continue to add value to your lives. And until we meet again, continue to protect your nest. You've been listening to Protecting Your Nest with Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com.